The two current best options for full-frame mirrorless video cameras. The Sony A7 III is one of my favorite cameras ever made. For the price, it is hard to top its combination of quality and usability. But Nikon has shocked me to my core by releasing the first Nikon camera that I consider to be a legitimate video camera. It actually tops the A7 III in a lot of very key specs. Which one will come out on top for the best full-frame YouTube/online content camera? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. These two cameras are, no kidding, two of the best on the market today. And I do want to point something out here in the beginning that I don't normally mention. And what's awesome about today is there really is not a terrible choice when it comes to video cameras. Almost everything out there is capable of making a decent image. Heck, even cell phones are stepping up their game today, and like right now we're currently recording on a camera that costs like a fourth of both of these. We're currently recording on the M50. So for starters, let's cover the basic specs of both cameras to get us all on the same page. And quick disclaimer, if you haven't seen my videos before, I'm not a photographer, nor am I a professional videographer. I make home videos and these YouTube videos, so those are the specs we'll be covering today. Here on the Everyday Dad, we like to go age before beauty, so let's bring up the main full-frame disruptor itself, the A7 III. The A7 III is a wildly popular mirrorless camera from the current dominators of full-frame mirrorless, Sony. It has a 24 megapixel BSI CMOS sensor. It has a 693 point phase detection autofocus system. It can record up to 4K 30 frames per second and 1080p up to 120 frames per second. It has 5-axis steady shot stabilization, and on the back is a focus capable touchscreen. The Z6 on the other hand is what I consider to be a serious underdog with legitimately capabilities from DSLR photography giant Nikon. It also has a 24.5 megapixel BSI CMOS sensor. I say this because it sounds cool. It has the XP6 image processing engine. It can also record 4K up to 30 frames per second with no crop. It can do 10-bit video through its HDMI. It has a 273 point phase detection autofocus system and has 5-axis vibration reduction, which is Nikon speak for image stabilization. And on its back, it also has a touchscreen, but this touchscreen works for both focusing and menu selection. And instead of SD cards, it uses the XQD card slot. Physically, both cameras feel very similar. I mean, that is to say, they feel great. They are not my favorite ergonomically inclined cameras. I personally like how the Z6 feels in the hand better than the Sony, but I like that the Sony has more customizable buttons than the Nikon. The A7 III has more dial switches, knobs than the Z6, but when it comes to setting the camera to your preferred recording mode, I do prefer the way the Z6 just has priority modes, and then it doesn't have to go to video, then you select the priority mode. You just put it into the priority mode, and then you can either take photos or start recording video. Both do have the same style of tilting, but not fully articulating screen, which, that breaks my heart, but you get used to it. Both also have touchscreen capability on these screens, but Nikon's is way more usable. You can actually use the touchscreen for more than just focus pulling, which is a pretty nice feature. When it comes to the inputs or outputs on the cameras, both have basically everything you need. They both have microphone in, headphone out. The A7 III has micro HDMI while the Z6 has mini. Now I know that sounds confusing, but the mini is a little bit bigger than micro. But what works much better on the Nikon for me is the flaps just get out of the way. The thing that I dislike most about the A7 III is these little port doors, they just get in the way continuously. It's really hard to use the camera when you need power, HDMI, and audio, because this just turns into a jumbled mess of crap. I mean, it legitimately makes it hard to use this as a live streaming camera. We'll talk more about this later, but I do want to touch on it while we're still checking out the physical bodies of both cameras. On the side, the Sony has dual SD card slots, one for Type 2 and one for Type 1. The Nikon has a single card slot, and that slot uses XQD cards. Now, the single versus dual card slot isn't really a big deal for me. I rarely use more than one card slot anyway, but the SD versus XQD is where I'm definitely going to be complaining. We're going to be complaining about that here in a little bit. Okay, that's enough talking at the cameras. Let's get into what I consider to be the most important aspects of a camera when it comes to YouTube/online video production, and the very first one is image quality. I know, I've kind of given up and I just let the image quality go first because it's the prima donna of the features, like that's what cameras are for. Now, there's no two ways about it in my opinion. When it comes to technical specs, the Z6 outstrips the A7 III, which is crazy, right? Like we mentioned, both cameras can do up to 4K 30 frames per second, but the Z6 does that without any sort of crop, whereas the A7 III does crop in a little bit. Also, when hooked into a monitor like the Ninja 5 I'm currently looking at myself on, you can send 10-bit 4K out through the HDMI on the Z6, where the Sony tops out at 8-bit. But I mean, does that really matter when it comes to straight up image quality for online content? No, not really. And yes, the crop kind of stinks on the A7 III, but it's not massive like the Canon's EOS R, and I mean, it's still perfectly usable. I think both cameras, when recording in 8-bit, which is what I do all the time because I don't have time for post-processing, they both have a beautiful image quality. Straight up technical image quality is never something that I'm gonna be looking for or recommending. I prefer an easy to get good enough image, and both of these have that on lock. But don't take my word for it, let's hop outside and do the all-important video slash vlogging test. Welcome to the video slash vlogging test of the A7 III and the Nikon Z6. Now, I think the image quality coming out of both of these cameras is fantastic. They're both excellent cameras. They just have a beautiful picture profile. So the thing you're gonna notice though is this takes an XQD card, this takes SD cards. I have like 10 SD cards just laying around the house. I have no XQD card, so we're gonna be recording through the Ninja V for this. So it might be a little bit unfair, but this is what we gotta do. They're both really great though. And we're also doing this with like my severely sprained wrist, so this is gonna be a fun test. Okay, let's take this huge monster of a rig out. Vlogging test begin. Whoa! Okay, welcome to the vlogging test of the Nikon Z6 versus the Sony A7 III. Both cameras are set to aperture priority mode. They're both set to f4, and they both have their kit lenses. And they are both on this tripod heavy as F. Especially when you've got, you know, a severely damaged hand. So this is what you can see from their stabilization of both cameras. Now, I do really like the image quality coming out of both cameras. It is fantastic. Let's get some sun in the face. Let's get some sun going on so it's not so darn hot out here. You will need a different lens if you want to do some vlogging. 28mm is kind of tight for vlogging. I mean, look, that's my face. That's my face all up in it, but we're actually gonna set this down because this is starting to hurt. So let's put it on the tripod. We'll finish the video test there. Okay, so welcome to the video quality test between the two cameras. So this is the image quality coming out of the A7 III. This is the image quality coming out of the Nikon Z6. We were doing the vlogging test. We had to stop because that huge rig was not very good for the everyday dad's terribly sprained wrist. So this is what we'll finish out the video quality on this way. Now, I am trying to match the two focal lengths together pretty well. Like I said earlier, the Nikon Z6 does not crop in when it does 4K 30. The A7 III does. So I have the A7 III set to 28mm with 4K 30s with the crop, probably around what, like 31, 32. I have the Nikon Z6 set to like 30, 31, just to try to make it as even as possible. And they are both using their kit lenses. The Nikon kit lens is way better than the Sony kit lens. I'm sorry, the Nikkor 24-70 f4 might be one of my favorite kit lenses of all times. I like it better than I like the Fuji X-T3 kit lens. And if you saw the Fuji X-T3 video, you know how much I like that darn kit lens. I mean, it's also amazing with amazing stabilization built into it. Neither's a bad choice, and that's what makes the Nikon so surprising, is that Nikon has never really made a video camera that's captured my attention. Yes, they have cameras out there that can do 4K. I think the D750 and the D850 can do 4K. I don't know, I don't really use DSLRs, but I know that they can do 4K, but this one actually has good 4K with good autofocus, good everything else except the XQD card slot. The A7 III is just, you know, it's a traditional work. It has been around so long that it is like the workhorse if you want a full frame mirrorless camera. I do think the Nikon's going to give it some competition because it is also, they're both fantastic. Long story short, everything's great, right? Okay, back to the video. Okay, and this is the indoor/studio test of these two wonderful, wonderful cameras. So this is the image quality coming out of the Sony A7 III, and this is the image quality coming out of the Nikon Z6. So something I do want to mention that I don't normally mention on camera reviews because I generally don't mess with it is the A7 III is set to the standard picture profile, which I think looks really good. There's nothing, all I did was turn it on, put it in aperture priority, it started working. The Z6 on the other hand, I've had to turn the contrast almost all the way down. We're currently at contrast -2, and I don't normally mess with the picture profiles when I do a camera review. I like making them as fair as possible. But the footage coming out of the Nikon Z6, just like straight out of camera, is so so contrasty. I mean, even for me, as somebody that never messes with this stuff, it was basically unusable. So if you are gonna get the Nikon Z6, you will have to tweak the picture profiles a little bit to work for you. The audio you're hearing is, you know, my XLR mic going into the Nikon Z6 through a recorder, but this is, I think both cameras are wonderful. I really am shocked at how much I like the Z6. And you know, we all know I've made plenty of videos about how much I like the A7 III. So this is the image quality you can expect if you are planning to use one of these as your primary YouTube camera. Okay, back to the video. Got to dual camera it. But image quality isn't the most aspect of a camera to me, and it shouldn't be for the majority of the online content creators out there. What is most important is fiddliness. Now, I usually break fiddliness down into two separate categories. One is how much fiddling do I have to do with the body to get it prepared to start recording. And both of these cameras do that pretty well. I like the A7 III. I like all of the customizable buttons. I'm very used to Sony cameras. I've been using Sony cameras more than anything else. We are currently recording on a Canon, but Sony cameras are generally something that I'm comfortable with, I understand, and I like their customization. It makes it just so easy to just be ready to go. The Nikon, on the other hand, I like the touchscreen is much more usable. You can more easily change your settings. It also has a lot of customizable function buttons on it, which is great. You may notice though that one is a bigger setup, right? One of these is a bigger setup. I wonder which one. Well, that will add to your fiddliness category. If you don't feel like spending $200 on 128 gigabytes storage, what? I'd rather get this external hard drive. This was like, what, $100 for 500 gigabytes? Why would I ever buy an XQD card? So you will always be carrying around another piece of equipment to get the image quality set up in the Nikon Z6, at least I always will. That leads us into fiddliness number two. Once you hit record, how easy is it to get the footage? And both of these cameras, I mean, it's super easy. They both have great autofocus. Fiddliness, I think these cameras both do a great job. If they wanted to make their fiddliness a little bit better, they give us a flip screen, which neither does, unfortunately. And one of the things that I do really appreciate about the Nikon Z6 is I don't speak Nikon. Like I said a few seconds ago, I am very comfortable with Sony. I've been using Sony cameras for the majority of my YouTube channel's lifetime. But I'm always nervous to try out Nikon cameras because anytime I try out a Nikon DSLR, I don't understand a single thing that their menu says. I do not speak Nikon. But this menu is very simplified. It makes it very easy for those of us non-Nikon folk to work through it. But long story long, both cameras are great for fiddliness, which is very important to me, and I don't have a problem recommending these for fiddliness. Back to the video. Okay, I promise now, we are actually finally truly back. And it's time to actually cover the thing that separates these two cameras apart more than most, and it's actually where the decision factor comes into place for me and probably the majority of you, and that's the ecosystem. Camera bodies only get you so far. In fact, they only get you so far as to nowhere, because without batteries, lenses, recording media, you actually just have a paperweight. Right there, paperweight. And that's what's so tough about this comparison for me. I like the Nikon Z6 body more than almost any other camera I've checked out this year. I like the specs, I like the physical features, I like the stabilization. It is really great. But I do not like the ecosystem just isn't there right now. And I really don't like the XQD card slot. When one 128 gigabyte card costs $200, that really limits what I will try to record. SD cards, for $200, I can get darn near a terabyte, and not only that, but I can share those SD cards amongst my other cameras. The XQD card will only be able to be used for this Nikon, or I would have to go to a Nikon system to share them between them. Now that's not totally a deal breaker because I record everything to my Ninja 5 anyway, but you can't do slow motion through the Ninja 5. The Nikon on its current firmware, that I've seen at least, will not output 120 frames per second, so no pictures and no slow motion without the XQD card. Not only is the Nikon hampered by recording media, but lens selections are currently pretty slim for the Z mount. In all fairness, I do think the Z lenses are killer though. The kit lens is my favorite, it's right back there. The kit lens is my favorite f4 lens ever made. Now there is an adapter, but even if you adapt f-mount lenses, those lenses aren't really made for continuous video autofocus, which, I mean, that's what I do. The A7 III may no longer be my favorite camera body of all time, but it is a straight up workhorse. SD card slots, a huge array of both first-party and third-party lenses that work great, and a lot of easily accessible accessories that can make this camera just sing. I've seen some very beautiful video come out of this camera. And it's just a really easy camera to work with, and like I mentioned, that's a pretty darn big deal for me. Ecosystem is really the big deciding factor here. So what, right? So which of these two cameras is right for you? like I mentioned, it really comes down to the ecosystem. Both have really good image quality. Both are about the same level of fiddliness. I think the Z6 has better stabilization and slightly better colors once you mess with the picture profiles, but the A7 III has SD cards and a way better lens selection. Now, this has been the closest call of any video that I can think of that I've made in recent memory. And again, it's really gonna come down to what you need out of the camera. So for me personally, you know, I'm currently cameraless after I sold my C200. I mean, we're recording on the M50 right now, but I want 4K for my studio. Because I'm crazy, I don't know. But both of them are great. There really isn't a wrong answer, and either one would be great for your YouTube/online content creation. Thanks for watching.